This over to Dianne Stone, who is the director of our Senior Disabled Center, and she's done a fantastic job. A lot of the groundwork and the recognition of the hole in this law, I think, goes back to give credit to Dianne. So, thank you. And with that, I would like to welcome Dianne Stone. Thank you, Dianne.
Governor Bell, Senator Doyle, Representative Nafis, the list keeps growing longer. I want to welcome the chair of the Select Committee on Aging, Representative Joe Serra, also a ranking member of the Select Committee on Aging, Senator Stokel. I want to welcome Commissioner Mike Starkowski, the Commissioner of Social Services. Members of the Newington Town Council and Commission on Aging, colleagues, friends, family, and especially, mostly at the back of the room, the members of the Senior and Disabled Center. I want to welcome you all here on this occasion. I am so happy to be here today, period, and to be here today celebrating the signing of an act concerning senior centers and the Freedom of Information Act. Those closest to me might know it better as Dianne's Law. And that's because they've heard me talk about this bill a lot, because I believe that it is just really important. This law gives municipal senior centers, like this one, the legal ability to protect information that we collect about our members, your information. The majority of senior centers in the state are municipally operated, and because of that, we're public agencies according to the Freedom of Information Act. Anyone could come in and request information from our records, and we would either have to give the information out, or we could have to defend a denial at a hearing with the Freedom of Information Commission. Fortunately, there have been very few cases over time that I'm aware of anyway, that a denied request for information about senior center participants has reached the Freedom of Information Commission. But there have been cases, and one of them happened to be here in Newington. In 1993, a gentleman asked for a list of the names and addresses of people who attended the center for meals and for dial-a-ride. The center director at that time denied the request, and the person requesting filed a complaint with the Freedom of Information Commission. The town of Newington was represented by an attorney at the town's expense, and the commission ultimately concluded that the center's records could be exempt. Flash forward to this just last summer. I got a call from a colleague in East Hartford, Michelle Pantaleo, who's here today. A person had requested a list of her participants. She had consulted with her town council and was told that the records were subject to the Freedom of Information Act and that they would need to be released. Clearly, this was a gray issue, and it presented a potential risk to the tens of thousands of people who use senior centers in our state. So we asked that the law be changed. I want to recognize the leadership of the Connecticut Commission on Aging. Julie Evans-Starr, who's here, and Deb Poland, one of our staff members. They took our concern and they put it into legislative language, and they presented it to the legislature through the Select Committee on Aging. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. I also want to recognize the effort of my colleagues. It's really hard for us to step out of our day-to-day work sometimes to effect change, but we can. This bill might not be earth-shattering, but it is really important. I want to thank the legislature, especially the Select Committee on Aging who raised the bill, for unanimously agreeing that this law was important. And finally, I want to thank Governor Rell for being here today and for supporting both this bill, senior centers, and older adults. Thank you very, very much. And I'd ask Governor Rell now to come up.
Thank you, Dianne, and good morning to all of you. And thank you very much for joining us today. It really is great that you are here. Now, I'm just going to give a little different twist. I think that the public should always have the right to know, but there should be some exceptions to that. You as the public should know what your tax dollars are being spent for. You should be able to know that from your elected officials, present company included. You should be able to hold us accountable, and you should be able to ask questions in public all the time. But I'd have to tell you that sometimes it's simply not right. And that's what I started to say. Sometimes it's dangerous to make certain information available to the wrong people. Let's face it, there are sometimes unscrupulous people who like to prey on our individual seniors and other people. They will stop at nothing to get that information. And they have been, in some cases, as you've already heard, hiding behind the Freedom of Information law. Now, I'm a firm believer in freedom of information. When I was in the legislature, I supported it almost at every step of the way. But sometimes, technology changing the way it has, we all have to be cognizant that it's not your old-fashioned transparency rules that are in effect anymore. Let's face it again, phones aren't phones anymore. They're cameras now. I started to say, there's one right there. But that's just a regular camera. They're cameras, they're video players, they're mini newspapers, they are recorders. And you can still call someone with them every once in a while in between all that other stuff. I forgot to bring my BlackBerry in. I wanted to show that too. I keep it with me practically all the time. When I was younger, BlackBerries were BlackBerries. BlackBerries were simply, you know, something that you put in a pie, basically. But BlackBerries today are something that buzz, and they keep. I keep, you know, calling people. I have no clue who they are. They're just on my list because it's in my purse. And I will call it. I will say that it was a purse call, which unfortunately sometimes I end up calling people that I shouldn't. It's a pocket call. Sometimes I'm connected to people and they'll say, and I leave it on. It's in my pocket. They sometimes tell me they heard some very interesting conversations. So I'm much more careful with it today. But this little BlackBerry really is a phone. It connects me to the outside world, but it is also something where I can take your picture. I can also record what you're saying, and if I want to, I can say to you, you know, where do you live? What are you doing? And, you know, speak into this little microphone. Let me take your picture. I'm going to do a newspaper article or whatever with it. There's nothing wrong with that unless it falls into the hands of the wrong people. So what we've been talking about is simply to have a law, the law that I'm assigning today, that helps us in blocking personal information. Personal information that should be just that, personal and private. It upholds accountability. It still has, I think, the importance of all of our sunshine laws that we all so much support. But I think it will also help us in keeping out certain shady characters and keep them in the dark when it comes to our private lives. I also want to say thank you to the legislature who worked so hard to pass this law. And sometimes I remember even in my days in the General Assembly, the best potential legislation comes from constituents, from people who have experienced something that says this just doesn't feel right. We may need a law to change it. To our legislators that are assembled here, to the committee and chairs and ranking members that said we will work diligently to get this bill out of committee. That's exactly what they did, and then got the support of the members of the General Assembly. To them, we owe them a very special thank you. Thank you guys very much. So on that note, I think we ought to sign the bill. Thank you. We have plenty of copies if people want them. So, there. Oops. Thank you so much. Commissioners,